Welcome to Defeat Your Cravings, hosted by Dr. Glenn Livingston, PhD. Glenn has held his doctorate in psychology for more than 30 years and is also a former multi-million-dollar consultant to the big food industry and uses his experience to help you defeat your cravings. This show will help you to focus on dramatically reducing cravings and leave the diet mentality behind, so you can more easily and effortlessly achieve your health, fitness, and body composition goals. Please remember, no doctor-patient relationship is created via this show, and you are responsible for confirming any changes to your diet, health, or psychological routines with an appropriately licensed professional before implementing them. Now, before we get started, if you haven't yet downloaded the free smartphone app to access dozens of these recordings all in one place, as well as to avail yourself of a confidential community for support, motivation, and assistance, please visit the podcast link on defeatyourcravings.com as soon as possible. And now, here's your host, Dr. Glenn Livingston.
Hey, it's the very good Dr. Glenn Livingston with defeatyourcravings.com. I'm here with a kind-hearted woman named Rita, who's allowed me to record this discussion, this coaching session, so that you can benefit from her experience and strength and hope and wisdom, as well as her trials and tribulations and stumbles and falls. Right, Rita?
All right. Thanks for having me on this call.
Thank you for doing it. Thanks. Could you give us a little background about your struggles with food and then let us know how you came to defeat your cravings and what you'd like me to help you with?
Okay. I think that I've been having issues with food since I was like preteen. During the time, more and more identified my issue because, when you start dieting, when you're a preteen, or you start simply eating more and more, it was not understandable. Then, the older I got, the more I identified the problem, and then I understood. Just to give you background of myself, I'm Italian. I think you can see from my accent. I am 38 years old. I am a food engineer.
Oh,
I was able to incorporate food passion to my other passion for STEM, and I have a toddler daughter of 3 years old. And also in my family, my originary family, I think that we have a little bit of problems with food and a lot of bad habits, like not having dinner, meaning that in the evening, if I was hungry, I needed to go in the fridge and pick whatever I found, especially junk food. Also, no limits with junk food in the house. And also, I inherited like an attachment to the food and emotional eating. And especially during my years at the university, and also in the first years I went living alone, I attached to moment of solitude or a little bit of sadness. And I won't say depression, but a period where I felt less driven, let's say, on my activities. I attached to binge eating, and I had some periods where every day I binged thousands of calories. So I look forward to go to the supermarket and purchase junk food, etc. And then I didn't have dinner, and then I didn't have breakfast, and then during the day I was trying to eating less to make up for the binge, and like a vicious cycles. I also have problem with the feast and famine cycle, because so after a period that you binge every day, then I gained some kilograms, and then so I tried in periods which I dieted, no, and always been on the edge of the overweight, never been at the ideal, let's say, ideal weight that I should have been. Also, my physique was a little bit of a problem for me.
how did you find defeat your cravings?
I found it 1 month ago, more or less, because I looked again in Amazon, some books, some information about binging. Because what happened past years, also during pandemic and during my pregnancy, etc., I had a period in which I said to myself, I don't want to be on a diet. I knew only about diet or not diet, and nothing special. I heard many podcasts from you in this month, so I know that this is nothing special, but still. And also, this is completely ridiculous for me because you feel alone if you don't know that there are a lot of people that live this. This is very personal, and it's not a thing that people talk about. So you think that there's something strange with you, but in the end, it's not. For a while, I didn't do any diet, so I kept only eating normally. And also with my husband, we have a better structure in eating. So I didn't think about binging. I didn't binge for many years, for like 5 or 6 years. Then, in the end of last year, I done a diet, better diet, because using a calorie counter app, and not too low calories, and I lost like 10 kilograms. And then when I was almost at my goal weight, now I realized I had a craving and I didn't manage it. And then I started binging that day. And then I went into a serious, like 20 days of binging, also hiding from my family. And I hated this. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do this also, because I want to be an example for my daughter. So I said, no, I have decided I need to do something, because I was scared, because many years that I was not binging, like eating chocolate bars alone, this crazy stuff. So I found the book and it clicked with me incredibly. And I think this separation from the pig concept is fantastic. And so I started using this technique and the tools. It's 1 month now.
Is it helping you over the course of the month?
It's helping me because it is making me realize what's happening to my mind, and recognizing every thought, many thoughts that I have during the day are like what you call squeals. And so I'm trying to find ways to refute them and disempower them. Moreover, I read the part where you advise people that have problems with the feast and famine cycles to have breakfast, because with the calorie counter app, maybe something that wasn't helpful, that I also did the intermittent fasting. It was working for me because, when you binge, you don't have breakfast. So in the end, it was not a problem for me to not have breakfast. So after I read your book, I decided to add breakfast to my day. And also another thing that I started using, the ritual. I'm doing it before every meal.
Let me just summarize for the audience. You have a history of dieting and overeating and dieting and overeating. And you have a history of binge eating that kind of goes back to college, and you have some emotional triggers for it. You don't have a lot of regularity with your meals. You recognize that the dieting cycle and being in the feast and famine roller coaster was not working for you. So you found Defeat Your Cravings. Did you make a rule that had to do with having regular meals and staying out of the feast and famine cycle? What rules were you trying to follow?
So my food plan, you mean? My food plan is that I need to have a positive energy balance during the day with the calories that I set up, and like 1300. I want to run twice a week, and I want to bike to work, because now I can with my new work. I also will never eat anymore processed sweets. Everything processed, salty or sweet, like snacks, I will never eat them anymore. I don't need them.
Okay, so you don't have the bags and boxes and containers.
Exactly.
1,300 calories, no processed foods, and you run twice a week and you bike to work when it's possible. How is that going for you?
It's going well, and I'm doing it, going out with friends, and was able to have the better choices at the restaurants. I didn't want dessert. I didn't have cravings, particular cravings. My squeals are related to the fact that you will never make it, you will never be consistent. This is my main squeal. And my other squeal that now I recognize it is not my thought, is like, you are fat and you are bad. So it's useless. My pig is mean.
Your pig is very mean.
Yeah. And I don't know if it's possible. And when this you are fat, you are not good thought come to my mind, when I like feel that my trousers is a little bit tight, or when I run, I'm not so in shape. So when I feel this from my body, my brain goes directly to, you're fat, you won't make it.
So your pig at that time says you're never going to be consistent. You're never going to make it. You're too fat. Therefore, you might as well give up and binge, right?
Yes, it doesn't finish, but the point is that in the end, yes.
It's important to finish those squeals because you can only start to see the flaws in the logic when you really finish them. Before we go there, I just want to make sure we have the right food plan and then the right motivation. You have a guideline that says you eat breakfast, or it's a rule that you always eat breakfast?
It's a rule.
Okay, you always eat breakfast. Are there any other rules you haven't told me about?
No, because these are the main ones. I don't eat beef, pork, chicken. I only eat fish as meat.
You're a pescatarian.
Yeah,
Do you have dairy?
yeah.
You're a pescatarian with dairy. Okay.
I know that the ideal would be to be vegan, but I'm not there yet.
That's okay. That's not necessary for our purposes. So take a breath, okay? I know that your pig is saying you're never going to be consistent, you're too fat, you're too out of shape, and all these other mean things. What if you could make it? What if you could do this for a whole year, stick to 1,300 calories without processed foods, and you were running twice a week, and you were biking to work when you could, and you stayed pescatarian, and you always ate breakfast? What if you did that consistently for a whole year? What would be different or better in a year? Even though the pig says there's no way you can do that, what if you could?
If I could, for sure, I will feel better in my body and I will have more energy because eating too much, and especially junk food, then the following day is always bad. And especially after a binge, I have some cake. And also, it's attached to anxiety. Because one thing I didn't say that when I binge, I realized that in the mornings I had more anxiety, and then I attached it to my life. But then I also read in your book, I think, or in some articles, that the cycle with the binging and anxiety, binging increases the anxiety.
You might actually be reinforcing the anxiety.
Exactly. I would be in a better position also mentally, for sure. Obviously, I would be thinner and more confident with myself.
So you'd have more energy, you'd be calmer because you'd have less anxiety, your digestion would be better, you'd feel better in your body, you'd feel thinner and more confident.
Yes. And I'd be an example for my daughter.
I know this sounds silly, but why is it important to feel better in your body?
Why is it important to feel better? The experience in a body that cannot make you do what you really want to do in life is not the experience that I want. I admire people that can do marathon, for example. Both a person that know me and a person that don't know me, if you ask, could Rita do a marathon? I don't think they will say yes. But why can't I be a person that can run a marathon? I am far away from that because I run, but I run slowly. But why couldn't I? I'm 38. There are people that are 80 and run a marathon. So why couldn't I?
You could become a person that runs a marathon.
Yeah, I could.
You could become a person that does a triathlon if you wanted to.
Yeah.
Why is it important to feel calmer?
The anxiety is affecting my life, is affecting my work, my attitude to work. It makes more difficult to also to get up in the morning because I experienced many times that anxiety was too strong also, and sometimes I woke up later in the morning also because I was too anxious in the morning, and I don't want that anymore in my life. And also I'm better in a relationship with my husband and people around.
And it's easier to get out of bed in the morning.
Yeah.
Why is it important to feel more confident?
And the more confidence, the more dreams I can realize. I'm also scared to say dream. The idea that I cannot realize something like that is wrong, that I'm a little bit scared of saying the word realize my dreams. And I don't want that. It's not fair to me. I'm worth it. I want to be worth it.
And the last thing is, why is it important to be a good role model for your daughter?
Now is the time she starts building her attitude towards the world that surrounds her. And I know how difficult it is to grow up when you don't feel adequate, when you see your body and you don't like it, or when you use food in not the proper way, because food is simply food. It doesn't have to be attached to emotion.
You want her to grow up with confidence. You don't want her to be involved with emotional eating like you have been.
Exactly, because it was terrible.
What would happen if we kind of look at the ghost of Christmas future? If you allow the pig to convince you that this is impossible, that you're inconsistent, that you're never going to make it because you're bad or you're fat or all the mean things that your pig says. What if you allow it to convince you to keep binging? What's going to happen in 5 years or 10 years?
Hey, in 5 years, it will become even more difficult to start doing sport or starting new good habits. related to foods. It will be even worse. And also, another thing, in the past 2 years, my blood analysis, we say, indicators like
Cholesterol and diabetes and A1C, and yeah.
my cholesterol is higher than the limit, even if I don't eat a lot of fat things. But my cholesterol is higher. Also, my mother's is higher, etc. But probably if I will never eat any more processed sweets or salty snacks, it will be better. Because also I think that understood that sugar is affecting cholesterol even more than fat. I don't know if you know anything about this.
I don't know it in detail, but I heard something like that. Yeah. There's no doctor out there that's saying you should have more processed sugar. I can tell you that.
No, in fact,
You've got a processed sugar deficiency. That's your problem. I don't see anybody saying that.
no. And also my indicators related to the liver, not to worry about, but not in the right values. So it can get only worse if I don't do anything.
You have some soft indicators that you could be headed for some heart illnesses if you don't do something about it. Okay, good. It's good to pay attention now. Does your pig have any other reasons why you should not follow this plan?
In the past, I got you. So probably I will get you again. The squeal that I received now post-mortem, I realized January when I had the bad binge episode, it was like, I want it now, you gotta get it, it's too much, you gotta get it now. It was completely numbing my brain and I didn't have any tool to defeat it.
I want it now. I'm going to torture you until you give it to me.
Yes.
Anything else?
Coming from the outside, my husband is supportive of whatever I do. But I know that as soon as he saw me struggling in the past, I know that he's not so confident that I make it this time. He hasn't read the book, so he doesn't understand that probably this time is different. So sometimes I receive from him, this is another diet from Rita. It's like my inner pig agreeing.
Your inner pig says your husband doesn't have confidence in you. Why should you?
Yeah,
What else does your pig say?
he says that I'm not worth it.
Oh, okay. You're not worth doing that.
It's too much. What do you want to do? You're fat, etc., etc., etc. Too many times a day. I know that in the end, like hundreds of times a day, I have my pig saying this. And what I'm doing is trying to answer every time.
Let's look at the things that your pig said and assume that it usually wins with a half truth and a bigger lie. It's okay to acknowledge if there's some element of truth, but we really want to find the falsehood in the way that it's arguing with you, okay?
Okay.
Okay. The pig said, you're not going to make it, you'll never be consistent enough, and therefore you should just give up and binge. What's the problem with that line of thinking?
First, the pig doesn't know what I will do. Second, the important is that I don't binge now and I'm inconsistent now. In the past, okay, it happened, but I'm doing it now. I don't want to use the word try. I'm doing it now. The fact that I tried in the past is a sign that I don't want to give up. It can be successful. Because I heard from you that the people that tried more than once most likely to be successful.
Well, yeah, that's how human learning works. People fall down and get up until they stay up. Just think of a child learning how to walk or learning to use the potty. You don't say to them, you're not consistent, you keep falling down. You should just crawl the rest of your life, or you should just pee wherever you want to. We encourage them. We say, good for you. Good that you keep trying. That's the mark of success. Try again. If at first you don't succeed, try again. It's a sign of resilience and strength that you keep trying, not a sign of weakness. You don't have to worry about the future. The pig is talking about the future, that you're not going to make it in the future. All you need to do is flex your binge-free now muscle. Because if you never binge now, it will always be now. Therefore, you'll never binge again, right?
Yes.
What about when your pig says that you're fat, bad, and useless, therefore you should just give up and binge?
The answer that I give to me, I'm not fat, I'm beautiful, I'm worth it. I want to say all the time to my pig.
You're beautiful and worth it. Do you believe that?
Yes.
Okay, good. There's another thing here. There are a couple of arguments the pig is making we have to look at. Let's say you were overweight. You didn't look overweight when it looked at you, but let's say you were overweight. Does that mean that you're bad?
No.
Do you know overweight people who are lovable and good?
Yeah.
So the pig is making the argument that overweight means you're bad, but it doesn't really reflect on you at all, right?
It's not related.
Let's say that you were fat. Does that mean you should try to get fatter by eating more?
No, no.
I'm taking apart every last one of the pig's arguments. If I was fat, then that just means I have to be a little more careful and make a plan to get unfat. I'm still allowed to love myself like I am. I'm still allowed to eat healthy. As a matter of fact, if I were fat, it would be more of an argument to eat healthy rather than to give up and binge.
Yes.
It's kind of silly that the pig says you're fat, therefore you should binge more.
No, or you should stay on the sofa and not run. Doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Okay. So the pig says, I got you before, so I'll definitely get you again. You might as well just give up and binge. What's wrong with that line of thinking?
We cannot talk about the future. We have to talk about now. And now I know that you are there, pig, that this is the lizard brain and it's separate from my higher self, and that I can beat you with logic when the craving arrives. A strong craving will arrive. Not arrived yet, bad craving, but it will. I have a tool to defeat it.
You've set up these lines in the sand. You've set up these tripwires, like I'll never have processed foods again, so that you know now the moment you have a craving for processed food that your pig is waking up. You don't have this kind of vagary, this kind of being merged with the pig. You found a way to intervene in the space between stimulus and response and to stop the automaticity of the habit. So that's what you mean when you say, I will experience the craving. I'm not frightened of the craving. I know that the brain extinguishes cravings through discomfort, so the only way out is through. I know what's going to have to happen.
Yeah, I didn't know before. I thought it was me. I really have something more now that I didn't have when it happened.
The pig says that I want it so bad and I'm going to torture you until you give me the slop. I'm going to torture you to give me processed foods or eat more than 1,300 calories. So you have to give it to me or you're going to be tortured forever. What's wrong with that line of thinking?
There will be a moment which it will happen or it can happen that it will try to torture me, but I know that I have to feel worse to do well, to do better. I have to push through in that moment and be concentrated with the logic.
This is the place that a lot of people fall down. You're correct in what you're saying, but I want to provide some more texture and clarity about that, if that's okay.
Sure.
So, first of all, the brain is exercising two competing functions when you're going through an extinction curve, when you've decided, I'm not going to have processed foods anymore. One function is every time that there's a stimulus, like a bag or a box or a container or a jingle that you remember, or it could even be an emotional feeling, your brain has to learn that those stimuli no longer lead to the acquisition of the junk. It doesn't get all these calories. 100,000 years ago, being fine-tuned to stimuli that would lead to the acquisition of calories for not that much effort was a survival advantage. So the brain is reluctant to give that up. And that's why we get what's called an extinction burst, where the cravings get worse than they ever got when you decide to give them up. However, if you look at the literature and you look at the research on extinction curves, it doesn't stay like that forever. The reason it doesn't stay like that forever is because the competing need that the brain has to exercise is to avoid wasting energy. See, lowering your dopamine at that level and making you miserable and trying to motivate you to go try and get the junk, it can't do that forever if you're not feeding it the junk, because that would just be a waste of energy and you would have not had a survival advantage. In fact, it would be a disadvantage if you kept pursuing something that didn't lead to food. Eventually, the brain stops craving things that it knows it's never going to have. It's like a prisoner given a life sentence, right? A prisoner given a life sentence eventually stops trying to escape. The prisoner doesn't even want hope because it's an exhausting waste of energy. And so you just have to get through that curve. You just have to get through that burst of cravings before the brain starts to label it dormant. The other thing is, when you're talking about cravings for things that are overstimulating, these concentrated forms of sugar and starch and fat and salt and excitotoxins, those things, they downregulate the pleasure response in the brain. They downregulate the dopamine response and they downregulate the taste buds responding to the food that you're eating. So if you're having a chocolate bar every day, by the end of a month or so, most other food doesn't taste good to you. You don't really taste the natural sweetness. But if you get away from that, if you get away from the processed stuff, the hyper concentrated stuff, a month or two later, your taste buds double in sensitivity and your dopamine system starts to respond with pleasure to what nature has to offer. So the pig is lying when it says you're going to be tortured forever. It's not lying when it says I can torture you now. But the idea that you're going to be tortured forever just isn't true. The brain is going to stop wasting energy and you're going to upregulate your ability to experience pleasure when you eat more natural foods. Make sense?
Makes sense completely. So it will be a moment with determined amount of time, but not forever for that craving.
Yes. So you can tell the pig, you're just full of hot air. You can torture me now. I've got this in the long run. It's going to get better soon. Make sense?
Makes sense. Yes.
The only way out is through. Okay, then this is a tricky one. Your pig says that your husband has no confidence in you and thinks this is just another diet. Therefore, you need to give up and binge. What's wrong with that?
In the end, my husband will only be happy if I reach my goals. While I'm talking now, I hear the fact that my husband pig likes to party with my pig. But my husband pig does not create him any other problems because he's thin, he's in shape, and he's consistent with normal food rules, like doesn't have this problem that I have. So our pig will have to party less together from now on. And I am confident now because I have different tools to defeat the squeals.
There you go. In the end, it doesn't really matter whether your husband believes it or not. What matters is whether you believe it. And he will become confident in you as he sees you gaining control. He'll probably become curious as to what you're doing. And whether he does it or not, that's another story. But you don't need to convince him.
No, I don't want to convince him, no, in fact, at all. But the more he will see that I have a different attitude, he will be on board with it.
The last thing your pig said was that you're not worth it. You're not worth doing this. Just give up and become a happy fat person. Just go binge. What's wrong with that?
There are no happy fat people. For sure, when I felt too fat, I was never happier. So I'm worth it because this is my only life, and I want to experience in the best way possible. I'm worth it.
It's your birthright to control what you put in your mouth. It's your birthright to be able to take care of your body. And why is the pig the judge of your worth anyway?
No, in fact,
It's just taking pot shots at you to try to get you to feed it more.
yes.
Well, how confident are you that you're never going to break these rules? You have 1,300 calories, no processed snacks. You'll stick to your pescatarian diet with dairy. You run a couple of times a week and bike to work when it's possible. You always eat breakfast. How confident are you that you're always going to follow those rules?
I'm 100% confident.
Are you?
I can do it. It's no rocket science.
Do you hear any doubt in your brain?
In the bottom, I hear squeals. It's true. No, I cannot deny. But if I simply look at the rules, I can do it. There's nothing that can prevent me to do it.
Is there any squeal that you haven't talked about that is making you feel less than certain? Sounds like you're positive now, but
I'm positive, yes. The squeal, the one is like being coherent with the plan. But I'm happy that I have something to talk me through when I will feel less motivated. And I have a logic behind, and I understand where these thoughts that are affecting my well established plan come from. It will be the difference in how I behave.
Peter, do you have any questions or concerns?
Do you think that this is a plan that makes sense, or do you think it's too restrictive? But I know that you cannot judge other people's plan because it's ours, and I know that. But some advice,
In which way is it too restrictive?
like counting calories, about success people that use the counting the calories.
A lot of people do that. Bothers other people. Sometimes eventually they want to do something different, but a lot of people do that. I think that what you'll have to watch out for is if you start training for a marathon, you're probably going to have to add some calories or add some recovery food. If you do a 1,000 calorie workout, you don't want to create intense cravings. So I think you'll need to talk to a dietitian or a nutritionist and figure out what's an adequate nutritional plan for doing that. 1,300 calories is a little low. It's not extraordinarily low. How tall are you?
1 meter 61, 5.3.
5 feet 4 inches. That's probably about right.
There is a deficit for weight loss, but I also have a watch that tells me the calories that I burn when I go to run. So if I run, I eat more than 13,000.
If you're losing more than a pound or especially 2 pounds per week, then I would add more food. If you're not losing enough weight, then I would subtract a little bit.
In this month, I lost 1 kilogram per week, more or less.
So you're losing about 2 pounds a week. It's a little fast. You don't have an extraordinary amount of weight to lose, right?
Now I have to lose other 9 kilograms, 20 pounds, yes.
It's a little fast. You're going a little fast. The problem with that is that people have trouble sustaining it. Sometimes there are medical reasons that you have to lose it fast, so you could ask your doctor. But in terms of 2,000 people that we've worked with, I've seen about twice the success rate when people are losing a pound and a quarter a week, something like that. I might add a couple of calories. Could you make it 1,400?
Yeah, okay. The problem for me, in the end, chocolate, industrial things. These are the problem for me. I eliminated them positive that I can eliminate them forever. So for sure, it won't happen that I eat a full bag of cookies. For sure.
Good. You and me both. I never saw the point of having one or two. So none was a lot easier than some for me. I get it. Do you have any questions or concerns?
I have a question. It's not related to me, to the program. I noticed that the majority of the people are ladies, are women.
Yeah.
What is the average, as a curiosity?
Oh my goodness. When I first published the first book, I put a big star on it that said for men only. I figured I was a guy. And then I noticed that 95% of my clients, 19 out of 20 people, were women, mostly in their 50s and 60s. I think that the thing is that women feel a lot more pressure to look good. I think that people wait until their 50s or 60s because that's when their body catches up with them and says, look, you're diabetic or pre-diabetic, or you really can't do this. And what I offer is not a promise of losing 30 pounds in 30 days or quick weight loss or anything like that. I offer life-changing tools, but you got to work at it. And I think the people that are willing to work at it are the ones who feel most uncomfortable about it. And that's mostly women over 50. That's who I work with. We have our share of women your age. I prefer that because we can intervene sooner. You be a role model for your kids when they're young, and I prefer that.
Interesting. It's natural that societies pressures more women and they tend more to look into solutions in books. I don't know. I just thought about this because when I heard the podcast, I only heard women talking, maybe one man, till the ones that I heard. So I was curious.
Mostly women. I happened to be talking to a men's group this afternoon. I was on, I think it's called Man Talk Radio or something. I was on their show and they invited me back to talk to their super duper customers, whatever they are. Mostly I talk to women.
I see. Thanks a lot. It was great and helpful.
Thank you.
And that brings us to the end of today's broadcast of Defeat Your Cravings, hosted by Dr. Glenn Livingston. Now, if you'd like to find out more about the products and services Dr. Glenn offers to help you dramatically reduce your cravings and stop overeating in 90 days or less, please visit defeatyourcravingscoaching.com. That's defeatyourcravingscoaching.com. Thanks.